Thanks for starting your week with us. Hello and welcome to Business Daily. I'm Ijun, and so let's get started with a look at today's highlights. The two cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash, have reached yet another crossroad as the price of Bitcoin Cash skyrockets while that of Bitcoin drops. Alibaba sets a new single-day record in China on Saturday by selling $25 billion worth of goods. These stories and more coming right up. President Moon Jae-in, who is currently in the Philippines, participated in the ASEAN Business and Investment Summit, and he delivered a speech about an hour ago. We now connect to our Blue House correspondent Hwang Ho-jun for more details. So Ho-jun, it seems President Moon's address was aimed at sharing his vision of improving relations between Korea and ASEAN.
June, well, marking the 50th anniversary of the birth of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, the 20th year of the establishment of ASEAN Plus 3, and the 10th of the signing of a free trade agreement between South Korea and ASEAN, it was during the address that the President Moon introduced the so-called Korea-ASEAN Future Community Doctrine. He said Korea's future with ASEAN can be summarized as three Ps, that are people, prosperity, and peace. Moon added he will cultivate the relations to become people-oriented and increase efforts to increase multilateral human exchanges between Seoul and the Southeast Asian countries, including more summit meetings as well. Such efforts will also include re-examining the Korea's visa system for allowing people from those countries to have easier access to South Korea. As for peace, President Moon vowed to reinforce cooperation with ASEAN in areas including national defense, security, and defense industries. More specifically, President Moon outlined the importance of joint efforts in confronting Pyongyang's nuclear and missile provocations, terrorism and violent extremism, and cyber terror threats. And to cultivate a prosperous future relationship between Korea and the ASEAN member nations, President Moon vowed to increase economic cooperation, including doubling the size of contribution into the Korea-ASEAN Cooperation Fund by 2019 and expanding trade with ASEAN to $200 billion by the year 2020.
Now, this isn't the first time that President Moon has mentioned the need to enhance its relationship with Southeast Asian countries.
You're absolutely right. President Moon hasn't been shy about his plans of upgrading relations with the ASEAN member nations to become as significant as those with Seoul's four key neighbors, namely the U.S., China, Japan, and Russia. The effort has been coined, quote, the new Southern policy, which is the counterpart of the new Northern policy that seeks to reinforce economic cooperation with Russia and other nations in Eurasia, which President Moon mentioned when he visited Vladivostok in September. President Moon has persistently argued that expanding Korea's diplomatic horizon is imperative in establishing peace and prosperity in the region. This has been Hwang Ho-jun for Business Daily.
The National Assembly's Budget Committee is holding deliberations on the government's 2018 budget proposal for a sixth day. The ruling party and the government says the $383 billion budget plan will be directed at people-centered investments and foster income-led growth. However, the opposition will likely claim they are populist policies that will put a burden on future generations. The Budget Committee will wrap up deliberations today, and a subcommittee will start its review on Tuesday about the specifics of the plan. The National Assembly has until December 2nd to finish the review process before it's put up for a vote. Korea's financial authorities are working on rebuilding market infrastructure to revitalize the nation's capital market. On Monday, Financial Services Commission Chairman Choi Jong-gu announced plans to nurture private investments through tax benefits for the tech-heavy Kosdaq market. He also stressed the need to expand resources for venture capital so companies can secure the necessary funds to grow. To encourage startups, the government will also establish a $9 billion venture fund within the next 3 years. The commission will announce more details on those measures by the end of next month. Let's now get a quick check on how the markets fared on the first trading day of the week. For that, we connect our Eunice Kim on the line. So Eunice, how did Korea's major bourses end on this Monday?
Well, June, we saw a divergent picture for the Kospi and the Kosdaq today. The benchmark index logged its third day of losses. shedding 0.5% to end at 2530.35. Now, the tech-heavy Kosdaq logged the strongest performance of its four-day rally, ending 2.86% higher on the back of that news that listed SMEs will get a tax break as part of a government program. The local currency weakened to 1120.61 to the greenback. The biggest driver behind the Kospi drop were institutions who sold a net $202 million worth of stocks, followed by overseas investors. Notably, Hyundai Motor surged by 3.88% today on heightened optimism over thawing Korea-China relations. At the end of a seesaw day, Samsung Electronics ended down 0.4%. SK Hynix was up 0.37%.
Now, it seems investor sentiment is being affected by political developments over in the U.S. Is this expected to continue through the week?
It very well could, as U.S. lawmakers deliberate over a U.S. tax reform bill this week. We did see Friday trading on Wall Street ending on a mixed note for the first time in several weeks. Both the Dow and the S&P 500 snapped their 8-week winning streak, while the Nasdaq managed to stretch into positive territory in afternoon trade, ending up by just 0.01%. This as investors are watching the fate of that U.S. tax reform bill. There were two versions that materialized last week, one from the House of Representatives and another from the Senate. President Trump had said he wants a bill to sign by the end of the year. Investors will be watching how quickly lawmakers can come to a compromise given the bill's differences. This has been Eunice Kim for Business Daily.
Ministers from the 11 nations in the Trans-Pacific Partnership have reached an agreement to move ahead with the trade pact without the U.S. The leaders met on the sidelines of the Asia-Pacific Economic Summit held last week in Vietnam. Vietnamese and Japanese officials reported that the agreement was reached after the suspension of certain provisions from the original deal. Despite last-minute resistance from Canada, the core elements of the deal were ultimately agreed upon. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said to reporters that more important work remains to be done to ensure the best deal for Canada and its citizens. Cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash saw wild price fluctuations over the past few days, with Bitcoin price falling and Bitcoin Cash skyrocketing over the weekend. The large numbers of transactions even caused service interruptions at local Bitcoin exchanges, leaving them paralyzed. Our EG1 has more.
The prices of Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash fluctuated violently over the weekend, with many local traders reporting service interruptions on the country's virtual currency exchanges. According to CoinDesk, the price of Bitcoin, which soared to above $7,700 last Wednesday, plunged over the weekend and is now trading below $6,000. On the other hand, Bitcoin Cash, which was generated from a split in Bitcoin in August, saw its prices soar over 40% to around $950. Thomas Bertani, CEO of Edu, a cryptocurrency wallet provider, said the fluctuation in the price of Bitcoin came as the market realized that the price rise was an overreaching, leading people to start selling Bitcoin. As to the surge in the prices of Bitcoin Cash, experts say that the scrapping of a planned upgrade boosted demand for the cryptocurrency. Digital currency is run on a technology called blockchain, which records all transactions. The Bitcoin had been planned for an upgrade known as Segwit 2X to increase the capacity of the blocks, leading to reduced fees for Bitcoin transactions. But due to waning support, the plan got called off, leading investors to turn their eyes on Bitcoin Cash as an alternative. Meanwhile, heavy traffic in the online trading of these cryptocurrencies led Bithumb, Korea's largest virtual currency exchange, to shut down for more than an hour on Sunday, leading to extended losses. 이지원, Business Daily.
In China, November 11th is celebrated as Singles' Day, once an occasion for unattached people to commiserate. It's become a retail bonanza, like America's Black Friday, only bigger. It has set another record in sales this year, and Korean companies got a decent share of the action. Our Park Hee-jun tells us more.
China's Singles' Day has surprised the world once again. Year after year, the Chinese e-commerce giant Alibaba breaks its own sales record on November 11th, the world's biggest retail event. Last year, it processed sales worth $17.8 billion, which this year has grown to an astounding $25.4 billion. It's not just consumers from China, but almost every country in the world buying things ranging from shoes and clothing to liquor, electronics, and diamonds at a rate of 256,000 transactions per second. As soon as the event began at midnight, Alibaba's live sales ticker registered sales of $1 billion within 3 minutes. And in just 1 hour, the sales ticker registered 10 billion, reflecting the enormous purchasing power of Chinese consumers. This year, in terms of China's purchases from abroad, Korea was the country with the 5th highest sales, following Japan, the United States, Australia, and Germany. Korean distributors, including cosmetics companies, domestic airlines, department stores, and duty-free operators, carried out active online promotions ahead of Singles' Day, mainly to make up their losses from China's unofficial sanctions against them. Among the Korean retailers, Elan Group posted the highest sales during the 24-hour period with over $68.5 million. Although Korea ranked 2 places lower than it did last year, it's considered a positive result that signals a slow recovery in the distribution sector. Park Hee-jun, Business Daily.
Korea's export and import prices rose in October, growing for the 4th consecutive month. According to the preliminary data from the Bank of Korea, import prices gained 0.6% on month and 6.8% on year on the back of rising global oil prices. The price of Dubai crude, Korea's benchmark, averaged more than $55 a barrel last month, up from $53.70 in September. Export prices in October also rose 0.5% on month due to strong demand for electronics, and metal products. More than 10,000 electric vehicles were sold here in Korea in the first 10 months of this year, doubling from the same time last year. According to the Korea Automobile Importers and Distributors Association, Hyundai Motor's Ioniq Electric took up nearly 62% of the sales, followed by Renault, Samsung, and Kia Motors. Korea's electric car market has been growing at a rapid pace, with sales more than doubling in every year since 2010. The figures paled in comparison to China and the U.S., but market watchers project domestic demand for EVs to rise farther as car makers plan to add new models to their lineup next year. 2 of Korea's major IT companies have launched voice-activated smart speakers. Naver and Kakao launched their AI-based speakers earlier this month to try and dominate this emerging market. Our Park Ji-won reports.
This smart speaker was recently launched by Naver, Korea's biggest search engine and web portal site. Over 10,000 units of the artificial intelligence-powered speaker have been sold per day since it hit the market last month. Equipped with voice recognition technology, the smart speaker is able to respond to a wide variety of questions. It not only recommends a music playlist, but can also search the latest news and weather reports. Kakao, which owns Korea's most widely used messaging service KakaoTalk, has also launched its own smart speaker, selling out the first batch of 15,000 speakers in just 9 minutes after its official launch earlier this month. Kakao Speaker's biggest appeal is its collaboration with Korea's biggest music streaming service Melon, which has millions of subscribers. The speaker can also send KakaoTalk messages using voice recognition technology. The 2 Korean IT giants expect their AI-based services to grow, accumulating a wider pool of real-life data as more and more people use the devices. Park Ji-won, Business Daily.
In recent years, the proportion of Koreans giving to charity has diminished, now at only 30% of the population, adding to concerns that Korea's donation culture could disappear altogether. Here's our Elliot Kim with more.
Feel-good stories like a firefighter who donated money from collecting scrap for 12 years and a donor who gave $50,000 he had saved up for over 40 years and asked to remain anonymous have been gaining recognition recently. While these emotional stories tug at the heartstrings, hoping to encourage people to contribute more, the reality is that donation amounts continue to fall. From a survey of 39,000, less than 3 out of 10 said they made a charitable contribution in the previous year. That same percentage sat at 36.4 when the survey was first compiled in 2011, but has fallen into the 20s after just 4 years. The most common reasons cited are a lack of finances, followed by a lack of interest in donating.
A lot of people see the news of millions being embezzled by charitable organizations, and because of that, they're only donating in small amounts.
While an issue, the bigger problem seems to be how quickly the donation culture is going away. Those who had intentions of donating were nearly half of the population in 2013, but that figure has dropped to just 41.2% 4 years later. Then there is the case of Lee Young-hak, someone who solicited donations after garnering an immense amount of sympathy, only for contributors to find out the money was spent frivolously after his criminal arrest. Combined with the disappearing belief that one's socioeconomic status can be elevated through hard work, these changing sentiments could eventually leave a negative imprint on society. Elliot Kim, Business Daily.
The love of coffee around the world is unwavering, as it's still the highest consumed beverage in developed countries, as well as the second most traded commodity in the world after oil. A government survey also showed that it was the most consumed beverage here in Korea as well, making the nation the perfect place to host one of the biggest coffee exhibitions in the world. Our Lee Ju-young has this story.
Asia's largest coffee exhibition took place in the heart of Seoul for the past 4 days, featuring all and everything coffee-related, ranging from its history, art galleries, to a demonstration of coffee brewing. Korea has been catapulted to the 11th largest coffee market in the world thanks to the explosion in both the import and consumption of the beverage over the past 5 years. In the midst of the boom, the world's largest coffee competition, dubbed the World Barista Championship, was also held, welcoming over 3,000 visitors from roughly 60 countries around the world. Being the second of its kind in Asia, the annual event is known to have produced world-class baristas like Paul Bassett and Charles Babinski.
We think Korea is an amazing coffee market. It's made an exceptional change from a tea drinking culture to a coffee drinking culture, and it's amazing how it's been embraced here. Extraordinary quality. It's a fantastic place to host a show.
With more than 17,000 coffee shops in a city of over 10 million, data shows Seoul has more cafes per capita at 17 per 10,000, more than the hometown of Starbucks Seattle at 15 per 10,000 or San Francisco at 14.7. A government survey even shows that coffee beat out the country's staple side dish kimchi and rice as the most consumed food, as Koreans gulp down roughly 12 cups a week on average. But as budget coffee chains are starting to bring down overall coffee prices, directly influencing smaller establishments, experts point out that separate measures would be necessary to enhance their competitiveness as Korea's palate for Java is becoming more refined and high-end. Lee Ju-young, Business Daily.
The city is becoming greener, with small farms taking over many rooftops and wedged between townhouses, thanks to Korea's urban farmers. Take a look.
Here's a typical urban area with many skyscrapers, but up close, you can see quite a rare scene in the city. Instead of concrete, the ground is filled with soil in which all kinds of vegetables are growing, ranging from lettuce to tomatoes and eggplants. These hard-working farmers are the owners of this rooftop farm. They're not professional farmers. They all have their respective professions, but gather in this farm on the weekend for their crops. With membership fees of $10 to $50, everyone can become a farmer and enjoy nature's abundance.
It feels like I'm on a treasure hunt, and I'm very proud of the crops I planted.
To me, farming is more like enjoying a walk than working. Along the way, I get delicious, fresh, and healthy food.
The rooftop farm produces enough crops for the members to share, but in fact, it's not the best place for farming. In usual rooftop farms, farmers build garden beds or spread soil on the ground to raise crops. Both methods have some challenges. Nevertheless, those difficulties are incomparable with the joy of planting, growing, and harvesting crops. These urban farmers not only raise crops here, they also cultivate friendship and happiness with the fellow farmers.
Through the act of farming, we hope to encourage the public to think more about nature, healthy food, Korea's native specialties, and the local food movement. We pursue diverse activities to highlight those issues.
Urban farming is popular in many countries around the world. Germany, for instance, encourages urban farming on a national scope, mainly flowers, beyond its title as Europe's industrial powerhouse. Also, each state government in the United States has enacted some ordinances to form the best environment for the citizens to cultivate crops. As of 2016, the number of urban farmers in Korea was at 1.5 million, more than tenfold compared to the figure of 2010. There is one critical reason why urban farming has become such an important issue throughout the world.
Korea is a small country with high population density, so many conditions are unfavorable for farming. Nonetheless, Korean agriculture is known for its intensive methods and added value. Based on those strengths, I believe farming will fuel the happiness of urban dwellers. I call agriculture the business of happiness, and it is sure to boost our quality of life dramatically.
Some farmers are now trying to make profits by farming, pushing it beyond a hobby. And they're here in Haengchon, Central Seoul. Run by 23 urban farmers in the neighborhood, this farm received an official certification as an urban farming community last year. Their first goal was to build a farm that fulfilled their purpose. With a large outdoor farm, 230 square meter in size and 140 garden beds, every nook of the neighborhood is used as farmland. These farmers grow their own plants from seeds. Earlier this year, they planted and raised a total of 50,000 seedlings and made some profit.
As for this year, we raised and sold seedlings worth approximately $5,000 US. The members also grew crops from these seedlings in their gardens or garden beds and made extra profits.
They also opted for plants with high yields for small spaces like herbs and chrysanthemums. 100 stalks of chrysanthemums, which will be in full bloom soon, are set to be supplied to the local borough office. Also, a total of 14 medicinal herbs and crops are currently under cultivation tests. All members are novice farmers, but they all have years of experience growing plants in garden beds. They received adequate training to learn how to plant and grow herbs and other medicinal plants to become real farmers in the city. They set some principles they must follow regarding farming with a strong sense of professionalism.
As soon as we enlarge our cultivation area and secure a sufficient yield, we hope to create a model for the sixth industrialization of urban agriculture, which includes processing for commercial packaging.
Urban farmers strive to produce healthy food and make their cities green. They're not only cultivating crops, they're cultivating hope in the city for the future generations.
And that wraps it up for today. Thanks for watching. We'll be back tomorrow with more business news that matters to you. Until then, goodbye.